For those who could make it on Sunday, it was awesome to see people enjoy a few drinks, and we pretty much ate our body weight in nachos. I hope people can do it again this weekend on Sunday because I think it's the last European game and you can make sense of it. I had an awesome time, so thanks for those who came out. And if my pre-birthday had to be the excuse for it, so be it. I will be out of town next Sunday, so please do it in my honor. But before we get to next Sunday, we got to focus on this past week that happened because we are getting very, very much into the crunch time. So not only is our league matches extremely important, as is what actually happened in the NFL. Now, I did have a birthday between when I saw you on Sunday and then when I'm recording this today, which means now I'm a grouchy old man. And what do grouchy old men do? They complain. Speaking of which, let's get to the NFL wrap-up. Back in 2006, then Arizona Cardinals head coach Dennis Green was known for saying, "They are who we thought they were." If you haven't seen that quote in a while or that clip, go check it out on YouTube. It's still there. The press conference, the slamming afterwards, and then the just walk off when the guy who was supposed to be running the room said, "Thanks, coach," and he just stormed out. Now, you can look at the context of that. I don't want to talk about that at all, or the Bears, weirdly enough, or really even the Cardinals. But I do want to talk about that quote because it kept coming back into my head all week long when I was actually watching the games, and then I was reflecting on them afterwards. They are who we thought they were. This really shows the big games, the huge matchups this week kind of did go as either I kind of expected or a lot of people expected going in, or maybe how people thought it was going to go at the beginning of the year. For example, the Chiefs and the Dolphins played early. It was wonderful over here. Selfishly, I know some North American people weren't super happy about the earliness of that game, but to have a game mid-afternoon is always super fun. We get one more week of it, I think, next week, and that's about it. But the Chiefs and the Dolphins, this is a big one. Normally the overseas games are crap. This is two great teams. Both, they are who we thought they were. The Chiefs are hella talented in terms of their defense being fantastic, their quarterback and tight end being best in the position probably, but the receivers being garbage. So what happens? A couple early successful drives, Kansas City does their magic, and then they just hang on for good measure. Their defense ends up having to score one of the touchdowns on an offense that used to be the most prolific in the league in terms of the Chiefs I'm talking there. But they need receivers. We know this. They're going to do really, really well, and they're going to go really far. But at the end of the day, when they bump into a team that can stop them, they're screwed because they can't do anything else. The Dolphins, put them in the same category as the Bills, who I thought they were two good teams, but not great teams. So they beat up on the mediocre and the lesser teams. Well, the Bills sometimes drop the ball there, but they can't beat the big team. Right? Both of them bumped into good teams, and they both fell short. Yes, the Dolphins' offense is electric when they're playing against crap defenses because they're just 10 times faster. But when they're against a good defense or a good defensive schemer, they seem to struggle so far. Now, their record's still going to be great because they play a lot of mediocre teams. But even when they bumped into a team like the Bills, they couldn't find an answer. Now, I do expect that to flip later on, but we'll leave it at that. Bills, same. Whenever they bump against someone who can bump back, they don't seem to really have it yet this year. Who do they bump into? A team from the NFC North. What did I think the NFC North was going to be this year? Hella tough. Now, the Steelers, I wouldn't say are tough, but look at their record. Surprisingly, they just stay in games. They play 5 good minutes at the end of the game, and they end up squeaking it out somehow. The Browns, now that their quarterback sometimes just throws the ball downfield, they're going to be pretty unbeatable because their defense is amazing. Baltimore just dummied Seattle because, again, both teams are who I thought they were. Baltimore actually being legit, and Seattle, another one of those teams that just beat up on the mediocre teams, and they play a lot of them in the NFC, so again, they're probably going to make the playoffs, and their record's going to be great, but when they bump into a good Baltimore team, there's not much they can do. But the big team, non-surprising, really, if you think about it, Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this is where I am frustrated living in a country where I do not know how to bet on futures. Look at, as of a couple weeks ago, the Bengals' odds to make the playoffs, the odds to win the North, the odds to win the AFC are still there. Look at what their offense looks like when they have a quarterback who, and this is by his words, when they asked Burrow what was so different about today, he's like, well, I can run now. He can walk. And their offense is going to be great. They came out and just took it to Buffalo. Again, not surprisingly, they are who they thought they were. That applies to the entire AFC North. In terms of other divisions, AFC West, now, the gem of that is obviously the 49ers. They're on a bye week. Their other 3 teams played and combined for 6 total points in this week. Now, they were supposed to be a weaker conference, but wow, was that even weaker than I expected. But it leads me to my I'm going to try my best not to go on a rant, but if we jump over to the South, another mediocre, probably or more consistent mediocre, because they don't have that 49ers, at least up top, division. and you look at a team like the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I know if you've been paying attention and if you've listened to a bunch of the videos I've done in the past, I often not so subtly take a swipe at the Falcons for who they draft and then how they use them. But if this isn't the epitome of that, I really don't know what is. Who were they playing this week? Well, the Minnesota Vikings. And if we know about the Vikings, Cousins goes down. They make a trade for Dobbs. But Dobbs isn't going to be ready. He's just showing up. So they throw this rookie out, and they figure he'll get us through 1 week, and then maybe Dobbs comes in. Sure enough, because the football gods hate this type of behavior, the rookie is smited. He is hurt after trying to be a hero, and Dobbs has to come in. Now, if you were watching that game, Dobbs had to run to the offensive line and ask them what the calls and the cadence were going to be. He didn't understand. He knows plays, don't get me wrong. I'm not insulting the individual. He's an intelligent man. But every team has their way of calling things, and he doesn't know what that looks like in Minnesota. So he had to ask them for cadence calls. After the plays were being called, he was asking receivers, which one is that again? Because the guy doesn't even know the names of the receivers. He probably has to ask directions on how to get to the bathroom in the Minnesota facility himself. He goes out and gets safetied on the first drive. On his second drive, more successful. Third drive, throws a panic interception. This is a gimme game to the Falcons, but you already know how this ends up. Dobbs comes through like a superhero, makes fantastic plays, makes a bunch of amazing reads, and they end up taking down the Falcons. Now, if you are the Falcons, this has got to be embarrassing, and I'm going to have to go ahead and actually change a comment I made last week. If you didn't watch it, come on, man, watch my videos. But if you didn't watch it, I used the reference of Taylor Swift, and I said one of the most impressive things was her asking her friends. She obviously wasn't cheering right, and she wasn't really having, she just would celebrate and wave or talk to Kelsey's parents. But eventually her friends were like, hey, be a better sports fan here. Develop something. Gets a little cool handshake with, I think it's Brittany Mahomes. And obviously she's showing a learning curve there. I already complimented her last week, but I compared her to Derek Carr just because I wanted to show that video of him, or that picture of him staring angrily at the camera. I picked the wrong person. The person who needs friends is Arthur Smith. Now, if you don't know who Arthur Smith is, number one, if he had friends, he would not have that mustache. Just point blank. That's the end of the sentence. It's not even ironic. He's too old for it to be ironic, I think. He actually likes it. But number two, his claim to fame was he was the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans when his offensive strategy was give the ball to Derrick Henry, who just hurts people, and by the third and fourth quarter, he'll be amazing. And so Tannehill looks good. The receiver he had at the time traded away from the Titans, and then now we know him as one of the best and most consistent receivers in the league. So he's an offensive genius. He goes to Atlanta and just does not know how to handle talent. And I've criticized it, but I can't find another way to really say it. On the goal line, first down, what's your first play? You have one of his receivers is hurt. Fair enough. He's got one of the best tight ends coming out of college in history. He's got a running back. They drafted 8th overall, who's supposed to be a generational running back talent, a nose for the end zone, and a phenomenal, probably generational athlete. First play, throws to the backup tight end, incomplete pass. Second, decides to do a sweep run, something a little more creative. Does he go to that generational running back? Does he go to the backup running back who had 1,000 yards last year, or someone like Cordell Patterson who makes plays? No, it's a sweep play to, again, the backup tight end that he messed up with in the first down. Then he finally, on the third down, does give the ball to the backup running back who gets stuffed, and they don't score. I don't get it. I don't understand. One of his defenses, he had 2 of them this week. If you caught them, if you want to look at dumb responses that coaches give, often it's in the college game. Someone like Debo Sweeney, when they're like, you make billions, well, multi-millions, and you're really upset that players get paid. And then he goes off on weird tangents about how it's okay because it's him. Those usually are the dumbest things we expect coaches to say in those situations. He is outdumbing everybody right now. The comment that, well, Bijan Robinson is so great, he's just a phenomenal decoy, and he changes the way the defenses kind of would play them. I don't know how to respond to that. Sure, yeah, he changes the defenses, but like Christian McCaffrey, do the 49ers think, as great as he is at, when we hand the ball off, we throw him out of the backfield and he just makes amazing plays and essentially makes us win games, maybe he'd be better if we just never gave him the ball. Michael Jordan was synonymous with success and winning championships, but imagine if he didn't want to score or play. Blows your mind, right? Maybe he would have been even better. I don't understand how reporters just keep a straight face. It blows my mind. Anyway, I'd love to tell you I'm over it. I'm not over it, but I'm going to shut up and move on because week 9 was hella important to all of the leagues. I mean, the actual league, sure, but Why are we here? Our leagues. Huge swings. Teams are really starting to function. The playoff races are already starting to get going, and this week had a huge impact. So let's take a look at our weekly matchups. Was it a gift due to my upcoming birthday? Was it fate? I don't care. I needed to win. I got the win. Unfortunately, Kate and Nick, as we said when we watched the first game together, and I had to sit there as Kansas City pummeled and got the touchdown. And yes, you got points for the touchdown eventually. I know we didn't right away. Yahoo sorted it out. Luckily, though, we didn't have to spend the rest of the day together because we probably would have been frustrated. This was back and forth all the way. Even on my actual birthday, which was Tuesday, I woke up early in the morning and I watched the entire second half plus of just the game you want to wake up for in the Jets and Chargers. Did not give a crap about the score. I was watching your Breece Hall against my Garrett Wilson. I had a 5-point lead coming into Monday night, and at half you had the lead in this matchup because essentially Hall did most of the things that he did all game he did in the first half, whereas Wilson had a lot of his bigger catches in the second half, plus he had the fumble in the first half. Anyway, I appreciate the win. I don't even care if it's a gift. It counts. How did you get your points? And just remember, it doesn't make it easier, but maybe it makes you feel a little bit better. You were actually the third highest scoring team this week, so there's only 2 teams that you needed to bump into in order to get the loss. I, unfortunately for you, was one of them. Jackson had a stinker again, which is surprising because they beat the living bejesus out of Seattle, and I just think that they didn't really need him, and actually in the fourth quarter they took him out, which is not great for you, and he did not throw for a touchdown, so that kind of hurts your cause a little bit there. The fumble loss also didn't help your cause. Heineke randomly did okay in my rant about the Falcons. I guess they like Heineke more than their insanely talented backfield. I'll shut up. I'll get over it. I'm fine. CeeDee Lamb is proving to be your MVP, though, of this part of the season. He's just been consistent points. And Jacobs, in the FU game to the coaches, they fired the entire coaching staff there in Vegas, and then the players came out all happy and pumped about it, and Jacobs showed them why 2 rushing touchdowns is going to help your cause. In fact, Jacobs was our running back 4. Lamb was our wide receiver 4, so 4 seems to be a number you were digging. That's about it, though, for your top 5. Oh, no, I apologize. Your kicker was number 3. You didn't pay attention. He was supposed to be 4. So consistent across the board. You could have used some more love from your tight end, and if Hall has a big game or scores a touchdown, you probably win this, especially since it's just over 6 points. That was the difference. If you look at my score, it might be hard to figure out how exactly did I get the top score. I had a lot of disappointing performances. Only one of my 2 quarterbacks showed up. Kamara and Pollard, I thought Pollard, I'm getting used to disappointing me. Kamara, I thought was going to get like legit 8 catches alone. He sure didn't. Although some of those, that love and attention went to Hill, my tight end. Effectively, I won the way you're not supposed to win. My defense, my kicker, my flex, and my tight end kind of went off. Taysom Hill being kind of this tight end cheat code and ended up getting me. He was just outside the top 5, though. He was actually 6th tight end. Taylor did quite fine. My defense was the number 3 defense, but the number 1 defense that was started over the Chargers and Indy actually had better runs. And Allen was the QB5. So the people that needed to do things did just enough. Now, if we look at the bench, I did leave a few points on the bench. So did you, and this has to be a kick in the pants because you went through all this effort to get Heineke, to get that quarterback. We actually made jokes about how you originally had Dobbs, and that would have been a great game to play Dobbs. Maybe not against Cleveland, actually. You may have lucked out there. But the trade happens during a bye week to blah, blah, blah. And Dobbs comes out and just kicks ass and takes names. But, of course, you can't even be blamed for that. You would never start a backup quarterback who's not supposed to get in at all. You didn't know that Atlanta was crap and that someone was going to get hurt from Minnesota. So not your fault at all. Anyway, you did your best on this one. It really was just the birthday luck. I wouldn't sweat it. You're still in the playoff spot at 4th because, as we're going to find out, a lot of people lost in weird ways to make our league tighter. But I do appreciate. Don't think this goes unrecognized. And if I play you on either one of your birthdays, I'll try my best to do the same. But thanks for the birthday win. The other thing that Garrett Wilson second half watching did for me was I got to watch as I just narrowly got the top scoring team over Jules. Jules had it for the majority and actually looked like she was going to keep it. So phenomenal week by Jules. Raph, we're going to get to you, but frustration is probably just pulsing due to what you know is coming up and something I'm going to talk about. But let's stick on the positive first. Jules, you had a phenomenal outing. Yes, you had some disappointments. Godwin and Thielen have been much more consistent than this normally, and Philly didn't really score anything but touchdowns, which is great for Philly, but not great for your kicker. But everyone else did just fine, and in fact, you had a couple standout performances. White from Tampa Bay is looking consistent, but this was his first ever number one in the position, so he was our running back one. That was enough for you to push through. Dax, though, also was our quarterback two. We'll find out about our quarterback one in a second. Olave was getting the ball a little bit more than normal. Carr had a great outing against the Bears. So overall, I mean, your running backs just showed up and your defense did enough. So those were the only ones that cracked our top five, but you didn't need anything else, right? You did a phenomenal job at your number ones pushing you through. So congratulations, number two score overall. You're knocking on the door for that top four spot and playoff spot, and you kept that alive very much so. So well done there. Raph and James, like I said, a frustrating one, not because what's up here. I mean, Ferguson was a top five. He was our tight end five. Hurts was our QB three. Atlanta, again, kicker one, not just our best overall starting kicker, but our actual best kicker. Now, your running backs did suffer from the fact that Walker just had a poor game script. He had some tweaks from a couple weeks ago, but ultimately they were just down early and often, so they didn't really use him. Cook, surprisingly not getting as much love as you might expect, but you know what's about to happen. Avert your eyes. Now, Stevenson, not your fault. He actually didn't have a great game, but he had one massive run for that touchdown. So that actually spurred him on and was part of the reason why he got so many points. But seeing our quarterback one, and by far our quarterback one on the bench, has got to hurt you. This was actually the blowout matchup, 33 points. But weirdly enough, had you put him in for Herbert, you would have won. You know this. But again, are you really going to put him in for Herbert? I don't know. So next week you get it's an easier answer to that question potentially, with one of your quarterbacks having a bye week, I believe. But in the future, if you have three good quarterbacks, you're going to have to make this call and you're going to have to figure things out. So that trade was good for you in theory. You got rid of a quarterback who's now out, but now you got to deal with the young kid and ride the highs and lows. In terms of the bench, Jules is one of the few people who also had a good quarterback on the bench. Most of us are pretty narrow in that margin, and the aforementioned Akers injury does kind of benefit you. Madison now is the starting running back. So, Raph, James, don't worry though. You kept your top three. You could have made a move up to one of those top two spots, which we'll get to in a second, but you didn't. Jules, you narrowed the gap a little bit. You're now one win away from kind of getting into that top four spot. So congrats there. In fact, I think you're tied for fourth technically, but points for and against, which this will certainly help out on. So well done, Jules. And Raph and James, here's hoping your bench doesn't outscore your team next week. As Nelly used to say, what does it take to be number one? Well, Pamela, in your case, it doesn't take every single week coming out and scoring a ton. It's just doing enough to get by. You've earned that right with all of your big wins. So congratulations on staying in our top spot and actually giving yourself a little bit of a buffer. Kelsey, Frankie, I get it. There's a lot going on in your lives right now. Kelsey is dealing with a teammate who is going to be adding some distance to the equation. Or is this all part of their plan? Is Frankie going back to North America to get some more live reads of the games? Is this going to improve them in the long run and just hurt them in the short term? Only time can tell. Taking a look at your crew first, you did have a few performances. Burrow coming back has got to be helping you out. Henry's looking pretty good, but the big ones are what wasn't there. Now, Mozart did outshine slightly, but he hasn't gone back to his first couple weeks of just a score factory. He did get a touchdown, though, against Kansas City, which is good. But Kelsey, it just kicked you. Not Kelsey, the person we know. Kelsey, the catches with Swift and that Kelsey. Stinker of a game. You got to start flying her in. Maybe chip in, see if she can make the trek. Now they have a bye week next, so you're going to have to go to your backup tight end. But hopefully that kind of shakes him a little bit more and he can get back to it. I think as well though, you are still dealing with some injuries and some buys. Stafford going out, and now obviously in a bye week, so it looks like you're riding the golden mustache here for another week, or maybe you'll hit the waiver wire. Let's see. But you need a little bit of better luck because, as me and you both know, that we are not out of it yet, and I'll get to that a little bit more later, but we got to go on a bit of a run here. So you can't handle this rive and the wades of the up and the down. Pamela, in other matchups, you might have gone down this week, but you were just fine. Now, for you, it's fairly easy. Your defense did phenomenal. Baltimore was a top 5. They did finish 5th overall in defensive scoring. Neither one of your quarterbacks were top 5, but if you can get in this league 40 points out of your combined quarterbacks, you're off to a good start. Got to be getting a little concerned with some of your big guns, especially your wide receiver group. I've said it 5 times. You have the best wide receivers in the league if they're all healthy. Something might still be going on with Kupp, but then again, who's throwing them the ball? Something we got to look at. Now, they made a signing, so here's hoping that somebody might be throwing the ball soon. But you've also dealt with your stretch of injuries. Jefferson is supposed to come back. If you have Jefferson, Hill, and Kupp, and they all have people that can throw them the ball and they're healthy, you're not sweating it. And if this is your low tide and you're still at the top of the league, I don't think you really care too much, do you? So congrats for standing on the top of the hill. Kelsey, Frankie, here's to you rebounding next week. And we will miss you, Frankie. In a shock of the year, or as they put here, a lackluster showdown, Jackie, 2nd week in a row, she went from the Widowmaker to the wait, I don't want to say widow because that means I die, doesn't it? Let's not put that out into the universe. Anyway, 2nd week in a row, you're the low card. I apologize now you definitely owe 2 rounds of drinks. In fact, there's now 4 of us that own 2 rounds of drinks. Well, some of us have already paid, meaning there's only one single person out there who's only lost 1. Jules, don't fall victim. Let's get a new loser coming into this week, or maybe a dead week. Anyway, the reason why I say unlucky, I mean, you look at Geno Smith's numbers for Paul, that didn't inspire greatness. In fact, these were 2 of our low scores. Paul is just really taking my comments to heart. I keep saying he hasn't even made a move. I meant like an ad drop. He doesn't even want to change his roster, even when there's bye weeks. He thinks Etienne is that important to his team. He does not want the confidence to shake. And who am I to blame him on this one? Apparently it works because he did have some phenomenal talent on the bench, although you wouldn't know it by their numbers. He was dealing with a bye week, and he just kind of muscled one out, really with Diggs and Eckler. Now, Eckler stands as the only player on Paul's team that made the top 5. He was our 5th running back. Jackie, for you, I mean, I think you have the most talented receiver here in Brown. He had a great game. Mahomes has been disappointing for you, and you're going to have to deal with some other quarterback issues because Jones looks like he is out. And let's be honest, this was close enough that if you had a fully functional quarterback, you would have won this one. If Jones was even a fifth of what he normally is, he gets you these points, but he got hurt early and often, and once you get hurt in the middle of this thing, it is super hard to bounce back. Now, you do have a quarterback coming off the bye next week, but I think you've already taken someone's advice and you've made a waiver wire move already to lock down that second quarterback. That should help you out. You also should be really on the same wagon as me with Bijan, because if he gets that goal line carry and gets this touchdown, your week is saved and things are much better. Pickens, oh, geez, he goes from like phenomenal numbers to this, but ultimately, you need more consistency in your diet here. You've got some people on the bench. You've got some momentum now, Jackie. You've let us all catch up enough. I appreciate that. This is the you being generous part of the show. Now you've taken your 2 drinks. Now you've gotten yourself down to a reasonable win-loss record. You're still second in the league. Don't let it slip from here. Bounce back next week. Wait. Checks the stats. You're playing me next week. Do one more down week. One more, just to make sure that everyone's okay, and then take it to the rest of the league. That's what we need. So, Jackie, I'm sorry. This is your second week. But Paul, stop listening to me at all. I don't even think you started listening to me, but you clearly know what you're doing because you're 4-5, which is tied for that 4th spot, and you continue to be an amazement in many ways, Paul. So, congrats. Before we bump into our Week 10 matchups, that's right, Week 10, we're really getting down to it. This is what I'm talking about, a jumble. So we've got Pamela, who will start clinching soon if we keep losing. We're all beating each other up in the middle. Jackie with the loss still stays at number 2 because Raph couldn't convert. Everyone else, we got 3 or 4 wins. So when I say to myself in the mirror, you're not out of it, you can still, I actually mean it. We can make the playoffs still, Kelsey and Frankie. Of course, we have to beat some people first. So that's going to mean a big week for us. But in terms of Kate, Nick, Paul, Jules, and Lara, apologize. We got to get you on all the channels here. It's all still anyone's game. It's who's going to go on that win streak to finish things off that's really going to count. So speaking of which, let's look ahead to Week 10. Now, this is arbitrary. They just name it Rivalry Week. Rivalry Week. You see the Suma-based coffee apparently is kicking in. I don't think that just targeted Jackie and I. We're not fighting this week, although my birthday's done, so she probably will stop caring for a little while and just take it to me. That's fine. But if you look, this isn't actually that bad in terms of them labeling this week. First off, we've got 2 playoff teams going after it in a week that both really need the win, so that should be a super interesting matchup. 1st and 5th, but again, Paul is technically tied for that 4th spot, so he needs this win. Pamela wants to put this league behind us, and she wants to guarantee the top spot going in, so she's not pumping the brakes. And then 2 teams on the outside, but both on the verge of looking in, going after each other. So all matchups should be competitive because we all know that these low scores just means they have bye weeks and they have to refill the roster this week. Should be tight, should be exciting. One more match in the German country that we have to look forward to so people could get together again on Sunday. I might be doing something else at that particular time. Well, hopefully I'll be done by that particular time, but I will not be around for it. So good luck to everyone in week 10 except for Jackie, and here's hoping for another big one.